In the final chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, the resurrected Jesus proclaims what Christians have called the Great Commission. He tells his followers, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations." In order to understand this command, we have to consider the nature of discipleship. A disciple in Jesus' days was a learner, a student, a pupil. Jesus is the teacher, and anyone who wants to be associated with him must become his student. And Jesus told his current disciples that their job description was to go into the world and make lots more disciples. The school of Jesus was now open for enrollment, and his apostles were to go throughout the world, enrolling more disciples. Notice that Jesus does not say, "Go throughout the world and get sinners to pray the sinner's prayer with you." He does not say, "Go and get everyone to join the church." He says, "Go and make disciples." He seems to be saying, "I am the headmaster in God's great school, and I am the teacher, and I want lots of students." But as disciples, Jesus is not only our teacher, he's our number one subject. We're to learn all about Jesus, what he did, what he taught, and what he demands of us. One of the great ironies in modern Christianity is that there is a sizable portion of Christians who are convinced that the words of Jesus, spoken in the Gospels, no longer apply to us. In fact, according to them, his words were only relevant for the Jews of his day, so there's virtually no point in us reading the Gospels, except maybe for the last few chapters that relate to his death and resurrection. This is one of the most absurd doctrines ever foisted on simple-minded Christians, and yet today great numbers of believers have swallowed this nonsense. In the 14th chapter of Luke, Jesus gets very explicit about the nature of discipleship. He makes 3 statements about the qualifications for discipleship, or to be more precise, the lifestyle that disqualifies one from being a disciple. His first statement is this: "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and yes, his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." Obviously, our Lord is not telling us to hate our parents, wives, and children. He is saying that our love for him must be so intense that it makes every other love and relationship we have with others seem almost like hate. Or to put it another way, Jesus is saying that he is to be the supreme love of our lives, above every other person we care about. And he is so insistent on this that he tells us if we do not love him preeminently, we cannot be his disciple. We do not qualify to enter his school, and we cannot rightly call ourselves his students. In the next verse, Jesus says, "And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Here's a second reason people fail to be accepted in Jesus' school of discipleship. They're not willing to bear their cross. A cross speaks about death. When we sign up to be a disciple of Jesus, we must accept there will be some times when our desires and our ambitions do not match with God's purpose and plan for our lives. And when this occurs, one of us is going to have to yield, and it's not going to be God. We must be willing to die to our own plans and desires and grant Jesus the right to direct us and order our lives exactly as he pleases. Once we're accepted as Jesus' disciples, we will be carrying our cross the rest of our days. We will embrace God's will, God's plans, and God's designs for us, and we must be ready to lay down our own plans and sometimes turn on a dime once he makes it clear that his ideas for us are not a good match for our own ideas. Jesus is still not finished with this theme. He says shortly after these verses, "Whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple." Forsaking all to follow Jesus means putting everything on the altar for the privilege of becoming a student of Jesus. Every relationship, every possession, every desire, every hobby, every habit, and everything else. Just as in the parable of the man who found a pearl of great price and sold everything in order to buy it, Jesus is declaring himself and his program of discipleship to be worth everything we have. It is interesting that in these verses, Jesus does not emphasize what it is that qualifies us to be his disciple. Rather, he's intent on declaring the attitudes and lifestyles that will preclude us from becoming a disciple. 3 times he is saying, essentially, live this way, and you can never be my disciple. I don't want you in my school. You do not qualify. Enrollment is closed for you. When we attempt to lead others to Jesus, is it right for us to speak of discipleship, or should we simply tell them to pray a sinner's prayer and just hope they'll come to discipleship sometime in the future? Jesus himself warns us that discipleship is not optional, and he wants us to know this before ever applying to become his follower. He warns, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it, lest after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him." Imagine someone who's ready to pray a sinner's prayer with you, but first they tell you, "Now, I want you to know that I have no intention of obeying Jesus or making him first in my life. I intend to go right on living as wickedly as I ever did before. I just don't want to go to hell, so I'm going to pray this prayer with you so I can end up in a pleasant place when I die. That's okay, isn't it?" No, that is not okay. To be truly saved means becoming a disciple of Jesus, which means putting him first in our lives and loving him more than anybody or anything, and being willing to submit to his will. You cannot become a Christian but reject discipleship. To be a Christian means becoming a disciple, and becoming a disciple means becoming a Christian. To be saved is to be a disciple, and to become a disciple is to be saved. Yes, we do come to Jesus purely by faith, but it is a living faith that makes Jesus our number one priority. Anything less than this is no faith at all. The command of Jesus has never altered or been amended. All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations. The question that so many people have about us is, how in the world did you guys get to know each other? How did you get together? Well, the answer is found in Benedicta's new autobiography, When Destiny Calls. In fact, we do something in that autobiography that is almost never done. We each have a chapter sharing from our own perspective how we got together and how we first got to know each other. So she tells her side of it, I tell my side of it, and then it goes on with the rest of her autobiography. And the whole autobiography is exciting. It's a lot of drama and a lot of good stuff. But I think you'll find it interesting to know how it was that God brought us together. So there'll be a link in the description about how you can get this book on Amazon, either as an ebook or a paperback.